5 things we like about the Jalen Pitre extension. If you're just tuning in, Jalen Pitre, the latest Houston Texans player to get extended, current, I'll call it core player, to get extended. 3 years, $39 million. Jalen Pitre is going to be a Texan for the next several years. Here was Nick Caserio before we get to the 5 things we like about the extension. Nick Caserio, we asked him when he was on with us a week ago, hey, is it presumptuous for us to think that you've kind of shown us through the Hunter, Nico, and Stingley extensions what the blueprint is for getting extended as a Houston Texan?
Good player, good attitude. Go out there, be productive, work hard, put the team first, and you'll be rewarded. But I think when you look at the overall composition of the team and the mindset, and D'Amico has talked about this, what are the things that we're looking for? What do we prioritize? What a Houston Texan football player should look like, or what we want it to look like? Understanding every player is different. Everyone has strengths. Everyone has areas that they can improve. We feel like we're pretty fortunate that we have a lot of good football players on this team, in this building. And, you know, those players, they earn what they receive. We don't give out anything. Like, this isn't like, okay, come in here and we're just going to give you get what you earn. And the contracts are the contracts. And every situation is going to be a little bit different.
So the biggest thing, first and foremost, is just, without digging deep into bring a spreadsheet out, the numbers make sense. You're going to see various people report it that this makes him the highest paid nickel back in the NFL. It's dicey with Pitre because he's playing multiple different roles. Sometimes he's a nickel linebacker, sometimes he's a slot corner. But the other part of it is that the deal doesn't kick in immediately. So what it works into is that he's going to be playing on a deal that over the course of time, he's averaging $10.5 million per year. So if he were out there in free agency right now, it would be like he got a deal as a really good linebacker. So it makes sense from the Texans' perspective, but it also gives them a boatload of guaranteed money. So from Jalen Pitre's perspective, it makes sense as well. I think it's like a muted version of the Nico Collins contract, in that it's good for all parties involved. Everybody can feel good about it, and it's making a bet on his upside and his consistency. But this is it played out pretty much the same way Texans cap thought it should, and has been talking about and writing back. He's a great follow on Twitter or X if you like this kind of stuff, at Texans Cap. So I feel really good about that part of it. It's the appropriate extension. It's both sides benefit from.
So that's number one that you like that we like about this, is it's the appropriate value for the contract.
I think the other thing is if we play the clip from Caserio and talking about having multiple players like Jalen Pitre on the team. This is Nick Caserio from earlier this season, the week before he was injured.
Yeah, I'd say JP's been on anybody in the building, like what he means to our team, and you're going to get nothing but glowing remarks and positives. He plays the right way. He's got the right mindset. He's impactful with the plays. You know, I think every player, like, you're going to have plays, you know, either give up some plays, you want some plays back, but just his energy, his mindset, his physicality, his effort, his playmaking ability. I want to say he's our leading tackler. Or something. I mean, he's close. I think him and Henry are close, but he impacts the game in a positive way when he's on the field, and his attitude is infectious. I mean, we talked last year was 1,000. Like, we'll take 2,000 Jalen Pitre's on this football team. So he's embraced the role. It's different than the role last year, but we've figured out that this is the best thing for him and for the football team, and he's gone out there and made play after play after play in each game. So, you know, we're fortunate. We feel like we have a number of good football players on this football team. You know, JP's certainly high on the list.
So this is, and sorry, Ben, I flipped it up on you there right at the last moment. The biggest thing about guys like Jalen Pitre is that as long as you've got a number of guys like him, you don't have to be in that awful position as a coach of trying to coach enthusiasm. There's nothing worse than being a coach saying, like, hey guys, could you show a little more excitement out there when guys get excited about making a big play or something?
Yep.
That he is that type of player that
He's
brings
genuine.
a certain energy. Yeah. And there's kind of a tipping point on a team where you got to have a certain number of guys who just play that way in, or to really play with the kind of energy that Texans defense does. The third thing I'd say about Jalen Pitre is his actual style of play and his ability to force turnovers, his ability to just kind of flip the field at times and come up in big moments. You know, you and I were talking with somebody during the commercial break who just flat out, he said, yeah, boy, we need him healthy in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, he's the type of player that can flip the script on you immediately. The same way Derek Stingley can flip the script with an interception, or Will Anderson or Daniil Hunter can flip the script with a sack. Jalen Pitre, like it wasn't that Cowboys game, he can come up and just flip the script by causing a fumble with a hellacious hit.
Yep.
And there's another part that I would add into this, and the real big step forward that Jalen Pitre took this year that I was excited to see, and we saw it in training camp, was he played less like a kamikaze and more like somebody who's got a controlled aggression to him. He was taking the right angles. He was form tackling when the situation demanded it. He was going for the big hit when it was okay for him to go for the big hit. So that style of like a restrained kamikaze on the field, that's part and parcel of the way this defense needs to play. They need to play with the same enthusiasm and the same fervor that they played with last year, but they got to dial it in and discipline and be more disciplined in certain aspects. When it comes to just they can't be allowing big plays because they're going for the big hit and miss the tackle.
So appropriate value on the contract, genuine enthusiasm from Jalen Pitre, style of play, number 3.
Yeah.
Number 4.
The other big one, we touched on this earlier, is that I have zero concerns whatsoever that Jalen Pitre is going to somehow take his foot off the gas because now he got paid.
Yeah.
He's got that part of him that obviously just loves playing football. But remember, he was one of the guys who stuck it out at Baylor when everybody else was jumping ship, and justifiably so. It made sense for a lot of guys that, man, if you make the smart, rational decision, all right, I'm going to head off for greener pastures. That was when it wasn't, they were given permission to do it without being dinged by the transfer portal or anything else like that. They just got carte blanche. Those players could just leave, and he chose to stay. He's just kind of wired that way. He's wired. I would put the over-under on Jalen Pitre staying married for the rest of his life to whomever he marries in the future.
Yeah.
I'll put the over-under on his marriage at 45 years.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that he's going to stick around through thick and
That's
through thin.
my kind of sports book where we can take everybody's marriage everywhere and just bet on how many years, if there's a divorce, and if so, if there is a divorce, what's the over-under on number of years they stay married. If there was a sports book for that, especially as someone who's been through a divorce, I might be able to cash in heavy on that, I think.
I remember one of those fascinating discussions I ever had was with your friend Wallace Marsh, who's but he was a petroleum engineer going back to the 80s.
Yeah.
This is when he graduated from A&M. And
Oklahoma.
Excuse me. Oh, God, excuse me. I'm sorry, Wallace.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you wanted to be an Aggie, but you couldn't get in.
That was worse. Continue.
There was a period where petroleum engineers were not in high demand, and people were jumping ship like it was the Baylor football program.
Yep.
They wanted nothing to do with being a petroleum engineer. And then all of a sudden, when the industry came back, there was a high demand for petroleum engineers. And Wallace said that of all the people that were still in the business that were senior petroleum engineers, they did very well because of it, because they were in high demand.
Yes.
Everybody that he knew that had stuck with the profession was also still married. Like there was kind of a commitment gene
correlation
there. That it was in an industry where, especially when you go through the highs and the lows of oil and gas, it's a lot of stress on your relationships. I feel like Jalen Pitre would have stuck it out as a petroleum engineer.
Okay, maybe so. And as I kind of do some introspection with that, because that makes a lot of sense. What do they say about people who leave a high-paying sales executive job to get into talk radio? What are their percentages of
Your
getting
second
divorced?
marriage is working out splendidly.
Yes.
Yeah. The fifth reason, and honestly, this isn't a major reason, but it just opens up my hopes for Dameon Pierce, in that Pitre was a guy that they'll define the right role for him. And as a safety, that it just wasn't it. It wasn't going to work out for him as a safety, or it wasn't working out for him as a safety. They figured out the right role for Jalen Pitre, and it ended up working out to the point where they wanted to give him an extension. I do feel like Caserio and D'Amico look at Dameon Pierce and think, man, we've seen the upside with Dameon Pierce.
Yeah.
And we also have – they didn't see the upside with Bobby Slowick.
No.
Right?
Nope.
They didn't keep Bobby Slowick on the roster.
They did not. That's a great point, yes.
They got the hell rid of Bobby Slowick.
Yep.
Dameon Pierce is still here. I still think that there is upside with Dameon Pierce, and maybe in Nick Caley's system and with a different offensive line, maybe we see the very best version of Dameon Pierce. I'm not sitting here saying they need to extend Dameon Pierce or anything, but I think they really, really want to reward guys who operate a certain way. And Dameon Pierce on the offensive side of the ball, but for the simple thing about the play on the field, he's got a lot of swarm qualities.
Oh, for sure.
He could be a huge part of a really good culture on the offense if they can unlock that upside that we saw in him 3 years ago.